You can't afford to fall into that trap. First of all, I was a field person. I was the down and dirty guy. I was not high up in a decision chain here or an administrative chain. The reasons were not made available to me, and they wouldn't have made a difference. If you stop and question, especially once you're in that situation, the one thing I discuss again are the three young ladies in the Red Army faction. If you were to stop for a second and say, say I'm looking at you and you're the person that I have to eliminate, and they have told me why, I can sit here and say, my God, she's young, she's good looking, she couldn't possibly have done this. The time it takes me to think about that, you would have already killed me. And you'd go on to kill other people. So I had to take on blind faith, blind trust, that the people who were telling me what to do knew what they were doing and had strong basis for doing that. Otherwise, you would go crazy or you would end up dead. Well, I do, and that's again, I'm not going to blame the alcoholic I became on any one thing. Certainly I was genetically predisposed to it because of my parents and the European everybody drinks thing. I'm not going to blame that. But the predisposition was in there. But it got to the point where, when I would sit down at the end of the day ready to go to bed, I'd start thinking about all these things because I'm not a machine, no matter what the book might make, what it might make me look like. I'm not a machine, and I do have feelings, and I could not get to sleep with all of these thoughts. I mean, literally, the sounds of the ghosts, the voices, the faces, they were there all the time. So one of the reasons I drank is because when I started, if I drank a little bit, I could fall asleep and not think about it. But again, it's an insidious trap. It always takes more and more to get you to that point. And when it did get to the point where I finally said, Roland, you have to stop this, I discovered with horror when I tried that I couldn't. And that's when I needed the help to get out. Now, I feel fine now. I don't think I'll ever take another drink in my life. It's going on 4 years. But I was at a point where I could not make that decision. Now, having gotten out of it, and I know what it did and what it will certainly do again if I fall back into that trap, no thanks.
I think, and I can't be exact, but I think right before he fell down the steps, he was having, like a couple days before or whatever, he would cry a lot. He would really be sad about things and depressed, and I knew it. And he came out and said, he worked for the CIA for the last 30 years. And I'm like, well, you know what? It helps to explain why you've been so quiet all these years. And really, I was not in shock. I read the manuscript. I didn't know all the details until I read the book. But it just helped to bring everything together to help. If I didn't know that, then we probably wouldn't be sitting here. But understanding that, I'm very, very proud of him for what he's done for our country. I'm very proud of him for going through what he had to go through to make it to the other side, because he had a choice. And he chose to live. He chose to better himself as a person. He chose to better himself as a husband, to, okay, we'd like the communication to be a little more, but I think it's getting better. And, so understanding the whole picture, and, besides the security clearance and besides, the depression and the, all of that, seeing the whole picture, really, I'm just happy to be here and happy he's alive.
I wrote it in 90 days, part-time.
Wow.
First of all, I didn't have to make anything up. I had a lot of raw data. If I were writing a novel, I'd have to start doing scenarios. What is this city going to look like? What are these people going to act like? That was all there. If anything, I had to cut it way back, so that people wouldn't get bored after 500 pages. But I did not consciously craft this book. I started writing it in October. It'll have been 2 years. I had it done and ready for the publisher in January '06. And then it was accepted by a publisher within a few weeks, by April. And then I got an agent because someone told me you needed an agent, and he took over and renegotiated the contract before I had actually signed it with the publisher. That happened in July of last year. And then it's taken this long just for the normal bureaucratic administrative hoopla of getting it through, getting it edited, which was a task in itself, because to have somebody who's never been in a situation tell me, you can't say things this way. I'm saying, well, excuse me, but there's really no better way to say this. You weren't there. Just my description of the Iranian prison, and I won't go into it here, but they told me I was too graphic, that I should say they hurt me. I said, well, when you're tied up naked on your back and someone with a big belt is whipping you front, side, top to bottom, there are better words than they hurt me, because being hurt doesn't convey it. I mean, yeah, I was hurt. Yeah, my feelings were hurt too, but it doesn't convey what I was going through. Well, again, my point in the book is to be totally honest, and sometimes the best way to be honest is to not get into something. Obviously, for the last 14 years, I've been stationed here in Georgia. Now, if I was active with the CIA, that means that I was doing stuff that I'm not supposed to be doing because it's domestic, which is FBI. So I kind of just end the CIA story with the end of the early 90s, mid 90s. I believe so, because again, the other two options are calling me a liar, which would then possibly force me to divulge any proof I have, which they wouldn't want to have happen, and I don't want to do, because I've got integrity, and I do not discuss actual classified information there. That's another reason I stopped with the early 90s, because I didn't want to jeopardize any current missions, people, sources, methods, things like that. And the only other option is to go to court to try and hold up publication, which they've done, to my best knowledge, once or twice before with ex-agents. But that again gets the book so much publicity. The first person they did that to, his book became a bestseller within weeks. It was sold out everywhere because they thought, oh my God, the government's trying to stop this. There must be something there they don't want us to see. We better go see. So for now, it's been the benign neglect.